your hands on top of your head.
Well, I didn't.
Now!
Here comes the jam. Getting down with the truth. The only way he knows how to. Girl, Lord, what's his name? We're calling the chief. The chief? You're damn right. He's gonna get that sucker. Yo, we track down the truth. You know what a track down the truth. You know what do they call him? We call him the chief. The chief? You're damn right we do.
Good morning. This is Morning Coffee with the Chief. I'm your host, Patrick Jordan, here on Pop Culture Minefield. You can watch the show on YouTube and Rumble every 8 a.m. on Tuesdays, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Tuesdays. Now, also, I have another show that I want to go live at every Wednesday, live on Rumble at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And, you know, I had a great show lined up for tomorrow. It's about a guy who was trying to tell the truth about vaccines way back when the vaccines were going on here in California. He got muzzled. So I'm going to read his book. I read his book. I'm going to have him on tomorrow, and we're going to talk about it. And then 2 weeks, I'm going to do every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Rumble, or you can catch it on K-Trey's radio platform. So again, live. So just download their app, the kgrdb.com app, and listen to the show live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Now, today's show, I wanted to do a show to honor the passing of Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman, the great actor, 95 years old. He passed away this week. Suspicious circumstances. But I wanted to do a show, and I selected the show Bonnie and Clyde, which is based upon the real life story of Bonnie and Clyde, in which Gene Hackman plays a character, Buck Barrow, the brother of Clyde Barrow, and the Barrow gang. And he did get nominated for Academy Award, which I thought this was a perfect film to do. He has a significant role in it, and plus we get to talk about crime during the Depression and all kinds of other stuff. So, but to do that, let me bring on my guests today. We're gonna go in rank order here. We're gonna go first with retired Sergeant Danny Coon. He's been on before, and I usually bring him on when I got serial killers, and Bonnie and Clyde are serial killers. So welcome back, Danny. Spree killers, serial killers, right up your alley, right?
Yeah, thank you, Chief. I appreciate it.
But we get to do a little bit of history in this one because it is a little entertaining as well, right?
Very entertaining and violent too. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, with 38s though and machine guns. Okay, let's I bring on my next guest, and that is Mike Ascolese. He's been on the show before, and he's got the Hollywood connection. He likes Hollywood. Always seems to have some kind of interaction with Hollywood, and he likes these kind of movies. Likes doing the research. And I worked with Mike at West Hollywood when we were both young deputies. In fact, his first night, as he told me, he rode with me because his training officer was at training, right? So you rode with me the first night. So a fun time had by both of us that night. Mike, welcome to the show.
Good to see you, Chief. How you doing?
I'm doing well. So, just to point out, Mike retired as a deputy. I retired as a chief. So, obviously I didn't influence him that much in his career, so. All right. Hey, well, but you know what? Hey, Mike is a good friend, and I've known him for decades. But you guys, so this movie was released in 1967. It's a biographical crime film. It was directed by Arthur Penn and starred Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. Now, I like both those actors. Good guy, good people. Faye, I think, was fantastic. A beautiful lady back in the day. And she played a really good, what do they call it? Mob mall, I guess. That's what the language is. She's a mob mall back then. And what'd you think of the movie, Danny?
I liked it. It was first time I saw it was in 1967. I was 10 years old. My dad packed up the family and took us to the drive-in, and we watched it. And it's kind of funny. And we've done this before. I was born in Kansas, lived my first couple of years in life in Kansas, and my mom was born in 1930, and this took place in 1931. So all through her life, her aunts would always tell her, "Oh, you're related to Jesse James." And then when I was growing up, all my great aunts, my mom says, "Oh, you're related to Jesse James and Bonnie and Clyde and all these other people." None of it's true, but they used to treat us like that all the time. Really, really enjoyed the movie. I've seen it several times since then, and things coming off, not to forget. But,
well, it's a good mix of action and drama and and the interplay between these two. It's just
some pretty good redneck backwards humor.
Well,
too.
it did kind of stick with history. I mean, there's some things that changed in the movie for dramatization. Let's see what Slasher Fred says. Welcome to the show, Fred. Let's see. I think that what makes this movie a classic is that it was inspiration of the first villainous romantic couple trope. Of course, there are also the 1950 movies Gun Crazy. Yeah, I think what was the other one? I think what's the one where I think oh my God, I'm missing his name now. It was about I think it was Iowa, and they killed people, and oh God, I'm thinking it's not In Cold Blood. That's two males. It's I'll think of it later on. But yeah, the killer couples, and there's a recent one. It was with I'm forgetting the name now. My age is catching up with me, Mike. It's catching up with me. It was with Patricia Arnett and Woody Harrelson. What was that movie where they were the killer couple?
In Arizona, Raising Arizona?
No, I don't know if that was the name of it, but it's Raising Arizona had Tex Cobb in it, right? But it was they were running around killing people. I can't. It'll come to me. But this, what'd you think of the movie, Mike? You like it?
I enjoyed it. There was a lot of unusual stuff in it that you don't see in movies very much, like the relationship with Bonnie and Clyde. As far as romantic, it was far from romantic.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really unusual, and that's where I thought Faye Dunaway was best, because she really liked him, and he, in certain ways, had nothing to do with her, and so that was really unusual for the movie.
Yeah, it's when you delve into the history of these guys, and so we brought our resident psychologist who doesn't have a degree, Danny Coon, on, and as a psychologist. But let's show some of the pictures first. So just get everybody. So I have some pictures from back in the day. So let's just go them in order, and I'll explain what they are, Martine. So just throw one up there. I'll explain it. We'll move on to the next one. Okay, here's Bonnie and Clyde back in the day. What I also think is I always love when they do these old movies, you get the cars, right? But this is a real life picture of her, and look at the styles. And they were really poor folks. These folks. I think Clyde was the son of a sharecropper, and didn't have a lot of money. In fact, nobody had a lot of money back then. And the other thing is the names. So the name is Clyde Chestnut Champion. That's his nickname, Barrow, and Bonnie Elizabeth Parker. These are some typically old style names, and she's from Texas. Let's see where Clyde is from, and he's also from Texas, but he was the son of seven, or he was a family of seven. He was fifth, and they were very poor, and they were sharecroppers, so not a lot of money. Let's go to the next one. And now when we go through the movie, I don't know if I have this scene, but this is a scene that is replicated in the movie where Bonnie is getting a picture taken. Cigar in her mouth, handgun, pistol pointing down, 38 pointing down, and she's kind of petite there, but not a lot of food for these folks back in the day, so I think they're all kind of petite. Let's roll to the next one. Now this is Blanche Barrow. This is Buck. This is Clyde's brother, Buck. I think his real name is Vincent, and but he goes by Buck. And this is let me get the actress name up who played her. Let's see, I'm on the real history page.
Estelle Parsons.
Yes, she actually won an Oscar, and she was in the movie. She was actually really irritated. So here's a wider scene. So you can see Buck is down. He's been shot. This is the shootout in the Iowa cornfield, which is in the movie. It's played in the movie. And there's Blanche getting taken custody, and she did end up going to prison. And Buck ended up not surviving his wounds. He did eventually pass away, but you can see him there. He got left behind by Bonnie and Clyde. And let's roll to the next one. Yeah, True Romance, Slasher Fred. That is another good movie. I love that movie, True Romance. I got to do that sometime. But But here's the cast of Bonnie and Clyde, and you can see they didn't win an award for costumes. These guys look pretty good in their costumes. I think, is that it, Martine? I think that's it, right? Do we have any more, or is that it? I think that's it. Okay. So that's back in the day, and one of the things that this is actually, since we have so much disruption with the FBI going on these days, the FBI's claim to fame was they created Public Enemy #1 around this time, and they started going after these serial robbers like Bonnie and Clyde. I mean, they took down Dillinger. These were part of that. This was, the Depression was going on, and they were robbing banks. That's what they said in the movie. We rob banks, and ultimately the federal government stepped in and started investigating bank robberies, and it was the FBI who took that on, and they identified people who were, enemy, public enemy #1, and they started taking them down, and that was really their biggest claim to fame. Now it's like, they're going after grannies protesting abortion clinics. I mean, look at what have they come to, right? Danny, this was their heyday for them, though. We had widespread crime because of the Depression. It was out of control. The FBI made their bones and made their name back in the day when this was happening, and now they're they're chasing grandmothers and conservative Catholics. I mean, I don't get it myself, but this was we had a lot of crime back then, and the FBI did make their name back then, right?
Yes, they did, and things are changing. There's a new leader at the FBI, so it's going to bring back the heyday of what it was back in the 30s, the 40s, 50s. They'll be carrying 38s. They're going, freeze, FBI.
The FBI recently, you see they're starting to put out stuff on their Twitter thing, right? About there were two of them. They got intel on potential school shootings, mass shootings, things. They quickly processed it, got it to the locals, and the locals investigated and disrupted the attacks. Great work, across the board. And I say that, and I said that in my tweet, and I said, and now hopefully the FBI can get back to chasing real crooks. And somebody took offense to that, and they were all over me on my Twitter thing. You can read me on Twitter at LASD Jordan, and because I dare to slam the FBI and what their priorities were over the last few years. But I personally would like to see them go in that direction. That is the way to rebuild public confidence, right? Is going after criminals.
It's easier to go after PTA mothers.
Yeah, they don't move fast. Some of them are in their walkers, they don't know. Hey, they're not doing the whole talking to code. Okay, we're gonna, that place, that place, that where they kill the babies. Yeah, we're gonna go there. The one near the ice cream stand. They don't talk in code, right? Criminals, so it's easy to get them. Let's just do wiretap and get all these, but Mike, what do you think? Same thing. The FBI is suffering right now. They've been discredited a little bit, but this is where they made their name, is going after these Depression era criminals, right?
Well, and bank robbery, serious crime. So it's part of their jurisdiction. Now, today, I think they got a chance with this new leader to bring the FBI back in line and get things going right, instead of being used by politicians to do stuff that's not under their purview. So,
well, they expand what they call, what I'm talking about is grandmothers. Just and it doesn't really matter where you're at on this. Is politically I think it's called the FACE Act, and if you disrupt a woman's right to get an abortion, no matter how minor, you can be charged with a felony and put in federal prison. So things that would be normally civil disobedience, if you do a sit-in in front of let's say a draft induction center, or a sit-in in front of the police station, we tolerate that. But you do a sit-in in front of an abortion clinic, you get charged and arrested and put in federal prison. That's, so it isn't just the FBI. It's the fact that our politicians have created these laws to criminalize civil disobedience for, they prioritize some rights over others. If you sit in front of a gun store, everybody has a right to bear a firearm too, right? That's actually codified in our Constitution. Yeah, nobody's going to arrest you and put you in prison for, 10-year in federal prison, but they'll do it if you do it in front of an abortion clinic. It's crazy. It's crazy. That's what I mean. I think the FBI needs to move away from that. Even if the laws are on the books, they get to decide, like any other police agency, what they're going to focus on, right? That's, like, I mean, the sheriff does, chiefs of police do. They don't
And,
have
and
to focus, right?
just because it's on the books doesn't always make it something that needs to be enforced. In Texas, I don't know if they've ever gotten rid of it, but at one point in Texas, if you shot your wife's lover, it wasn't a crime.
In the heat of passion, yeah. So, yeah, Slasher Fred, yeah, Warren Beatty did do Dick Tracy. I don't know if I actually liked that movie. It was kind
I
of
was
a
with
mix.
Madonna.
I didn't. I think of all Warren, like, he was in, what was the movie, the football movie he did? Heaven
Can Wait.
Yeah, I mean, I like the movie, but I still think his portrayal of Clyde Barrow here and Bonnie and Clyde is probably his best piece of work. So but hey, let's talk about. We got to talk about, before we start rolling the scenes. We got to do a little bit of Gene Hackman, great actor, and I chose this movie because this was, I think, his first role where he really got significant recognition. He was nominated for Academy Award for this movie, and he didn't win. It's actually the gal who played Blanche won, and she was absolutely irritating in this movie. I think I'd have shot her. And so she did a good job. She did good character in this job because, I was like, Bonnie, yeah, just shoot her, put us all out of our misery. So she did a pretty good job. And the actress's name, where's the actress here? It's I know you guys got it. It's Estelle Parsons. Yes, played Blanche Barrow. But he played Buck Barrow, and he was pretty good. I liked him in this movie, and but let's talk about Gene Hackman. So Gene Hackman had a long and storied career. We've done at least I did one other movie of his. We did French Connection on this show. I had Ralph Ornelas, and then a retired captain from NYPD when I did that movie. So it was a good thing where we talked about NYPD's narcotics, and back in the day in the 60s when they were taking them guys down. And that was a true story too. So I got to get some old pictures in there too, and just like I did today. But Gene Hackman, fantastic in this movie, right, Danny?
He was excellent. I didn't put two and two together that he was in this movie until you asked me to be on the show, and I go, oh, that was Gene Hackman. And then, you go back to his biography, and you see that he was from San Bernardino, and San Bernardino in the 30s was kind of backwards, like the South is. So he already had that built into him, that into his DNA, and so he played the part of a Southern poor Texas guy really good. And a lot of people not from the Midwest don't get, or the South don't get that kind of humor, but there was some humor in there that was like kind of weird, but it was good. And he played that part excellent.
Yeah. When I did the French Connection with him, we had done some background on him, and he almost didn't take the part of Popeye Doyle, surprisingly, because he saw the police officers involved in it that they'd been somewhat racist and brutal, right? So we're talking the 60s. It's a different time, and so he couldn't play the part, and but he ultimately did. He didn't, and there's a bar scene where he's not very pleasant to the black guys in the bar, and he was really uncomfortable with it. And for me, Mike, this is sometimes you get some of these squishy actors. It was surprising me because he was a Marine. It's
right.
I mean, you could be uncomfortable with the subject matter, but you're an actor. You're, just act. And
even in this film with the character of his wife, you can see he's his good acting comes in right away because he knows how to deal with her, and he played the husband of someone to deal with her must have been really rough, and it comes out in the film,
Yeah, he says he married the preacher's daughter, so maybe she was good at something. I don't know, but I tell you, when she was doing all that screaming, I think one of the shootouts where she's running around with the spatula, and oh my God, just shoot her. But it's interesting what's happened to him. I guess we got to talk a little bit since we're cops. We got to talk a little bit about the death of Gene Hackman. Really odd, Danny. Two people dead, and one of the dogs dead inside the house. They've tested for gas poisoning. Didn't find that, and just odd. And they've indicated that no blunt force trauma, maybe some medicines spilled on one of the countertops, and they're in different rooms, and the dog is in a closet. So it's really just odd to me. What do you
They
think?
did show that his
That's
pacemaker had turned off about 9 days before they found him.
Yeah, March 17th was the last pacemaker activity. And, when I first saw that he had passed, I'm scrolling through Facebook and I see this, Gene Hackman died. And I go, yeah, right. Because it was one of those bogus pages. And then about a couple minutes after that, I see it on TV. And I first thought, well, 2 dead and a dog. I'm thinking, yeah, that's carbon monoxide poison. That's classic. And then the next day they come out. And then there's other things I was talking about. Mike, you don't know this, but I write books about, I write blogs about suicide and law enforcement post-traumatic stress. And I'm thinking, among his age group, the silent generation, their suicide rate is upwards of about 34 per 100,000. And so they've got a high suicide rate. So I'm thinking, is this a murder-suicide or a suicide double suicide? But the dog doesn't just, I don't get it with the dog.
That's the part that doesn't commute is the dog, unless they killed the dog. But they had 2 other dogs that were outside. I don't.
And how did they survive for 14 days or 9 days or whatever? And it's just weird. And wait till toxicology comes back, We'll see and what was in the system. But that's just weird.
Yeah, they said they tested her for carbon monoxide and that she tested negative.
Yeah. Okay. That's it. Could be just his battery in his pacemaker took a dump. So did he. And
So Slasher Fred has encouraged us to watch the Looney Tunes episode. I think it was with Bugs Bunny, where he portrays Clyde. Wee Wow Banks. I don't know if you remember Wee Wow Banks. Remember that? And that's the comment. I'm going to have to look at. I remember seeing that as a kid. Slasher. But I have to go back and watching it. But yeah, just an odd situation with Gene Hackman. Hopefully they get some answers. Obviously, I've never heard anything negative about the man, and so it's a sad day that he's gone. It would have been nice to see him do a couple more parts, but because he retired, 15 years ago, Mike? It was
like 2004 or something.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, he retired and became a recluse.
Yeah, he just wanted to get out of the, unlike, Clint. I mean, God, it was Clint 94, 95, and I think he just did a movie a couple years ago.
Yeah, Clint's 94, and he's still directing and producing. And what's funny is you're talking about Gene Hackman and not really wanting to do the role in the French Connection. In the movie Unforgiven, he didn't want that part either because of the extreme violence. Yeah. And he's friends with Morgan Freeman, and he's friends with Clint Eastwood, and they kind of talked him into taking the role, and he did, and won an Academy Award for it.
Yeah, I think I was talking to the people who knew the cops in French Connection, and one of the cops, they were both technical advisors on the film. They had to explain, well, the reason we're doing some of these things so that he understood that it was just a strategy to get people to talk. It wasn't, so Gene Hackman did it, but I don't think you want to. When he did Unforgiven, he's looking at his legacy, right? Yeah. Is this really? I want to be. Was it Bill Daggett? The vicious marshal of Big Muddy. I think that I can't remember the name of the town.
The town of Big Whiskey.
Big Whiskey, that's it. Big Whiskey. I should have remembered that. I like whiskey. But yeah, so anyways, all right. So let's
so this thing from French Connection, that the violence they used there was to get people to talk. Well, the CIA did waterboarding, and everybody had a connection over that. So.
So this is the first clip. It shows more of their growing up as sharecroppers and complete poverty. I think the first one is. It might be Bonnie's or Clyde's. I can't remember whose. We'll see here because they'll say the name. But it shows just how they lived. And I think, with all the influencer generation and TikTok and Instagram, people today have no clue how these folks lived. That was Clyde's experience, because then it'll show Bonnie's. And just how poor people were, how they had to scrape by, and how families had to come together to survive. And they had, they didn't have birth control. So there was a lot of kids, and there was an incentive if you were a farmer to have a lot of kids so that everybody could work on the farm. And there was high infant mortality rate. And I mean, just having a horse was a luxury. So what I liked about all these clips is it shows that in a very creative way. It shows a time that had long since passed when they made the movie. And so from a cinematic standpoint, I really liked how they did this at the beginning, because it puts you in the mindset fairly quickly. What'd you think, Mike? Did you agree with that, or what was your thoughts?
No, you brought into it right away. I mean, the time and dirt poor, and it was only 2 years into the Depression, so nobody had anything. I mean, they really didn't.
Yeah, what do you think? This kind of it's cinematically it just immediately gets you into the mindset of what you're going to be dealing with, right? Or what the period that you're going to be dealing with, right, Danny?
Yeah, everything was sparse in the movie, though. Everything, backgrounds, the cars, everything. They did have a lot of cars, so they stole everything there was.
They didn't steal cheap cars either. They're stealing some pretty nice stuff. Big,
and even their clothes. Yeah, it's not like you could afford a lot of clothes. The characters wore the same clothes quite often.
Yeah, they were actually pretty good as bank robbers. But you're right, Chief. It's looking back at pictures of the Depression, talking to my mom. She was a little girl during the entire thing, and my mom is from Oklahoma, and when she was about 4 years old, she was born in 30, so it's about 1934, 1935, right around there. Her family moved to Fresno, and they were part of the Grapes of Wrath.
Oh, the Okies moving, yeah. Okay, yeah.
And then a couple of years later, after her mom died very young from the effects of the Dust Bowl. And they moved back to Kansas and farmed in Kansas for several years. But going back to that time, even when I went up to my mom's aunt's house in outside of Reedley, it's an old farmhouse, and this was right out of the 30s, and it was like, and then you start looking at the houses here, and this is right out of the 30s. So they did a real good job, period-wise, did a really good job of bringing up that period. I don't know where they went to get some of those shots. They had to be out in the boonies. Well, in 1967, they were out in the boonies in Texas. So.
Yeah, I was doing some genealogy stuff on my family that grew up in Detroit, in the Detroit area, and on my dad's side, his grandfather had been reasonably well off, and then the Depression hit. But they owned some houses, but everybody in the family lived in this tenement, this series of houses that he owned. And when you look at the census records back there, it's interesting because they might have had like 6 adult men with their wives and kids and stuff like that. My grandparents lived in a house that's behind their house with my dad first, right? But you look at it, and it says unemployed, bartender, and so only about a third of the people in the household were actually working, and they ended up supporting the rest of the household, and that was the reality back then. Families pulled together. Now everybody looks to government to solve their problems, but in reality, it was family there. So here we start seeing our scene. We saw Buck there. Clyde. There he is, right there. Warren Beatty, looking dapper. Probably the only clothes he has. Looking dapper in his suit, and seeing a very beautiful Faye Dunaway. We know she's naked behind the glass. She puts and this is the other thing. No excitement. You go to these one-horse town. There's absolutely no excitement, and some stranger comes through, and these folks got married right away too. There was no long courtship back in the day, right? So, but you see that she's bored and she wants excitement, and she sees Clyde, who's trying to steal his mom's car, her mom's car. She just leaves her house and takes up with him. Interesting time, right? But this is interesting, right, Danny?
That's Texas, I guess.
That's Texas.
Very, very interesting. But yeah, it goes on back to, boring town. Some of the towns my cousins lived in back in the 60s, it was like, and I'm from, we'll go visit. And I grew up a couple of years in Kansas, and then moved out to Orange County, and we'd go back there, and I go, dude, this is boring. What do you guys do for excitement?
It's cow tipping.
And it's what exactly. It's what these guys are doing here.
Yeah, I was I was looking for colleges for my daughter, right? So of course I'm looking for my daughter, and I'm looking for where she's going to go and have fun, right? And so we looked all the way along the West Coast, and I went to Washington State. And Washington State is like in the boonies. There's the college and nothing else. Maybe 9 miles away, there's another college. It's University of Idaho in Moscow. So that was the town, Moscow, Idaho, as well. So, and I have to tell you, it was Pullman, Washington, just this little cow town. I think we stayed in the only really nice hotel in town, and I go, hey, this is perfect. Of course, my daughter didn't go there. This is perfect. I don't think you can get in trouble out here. So she ended up going to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. But
that's good. At least she didn't go to San Diego State. That's
They did have that big shooting at the University of Idaho in Moscow.
Yeah, they did.
Yep.
We went to look at it, because we looked at Washington State. I went to University of Washington, then we drove all the way across. Washington is a lot of farmland right in the middle, off the coast, between the coast and going east. It's a lot of lentils and that kind of stuff, just a ton of farmland. And then we get to Washington State. We spent the night there, and then we went to check out Moscow, Idaho, too, before we shot up further north. No, we went back south because we went to Oregon. So Oregon, we went back down. But yeah, it's they had that shooting, and the guy was going to Washington State. He
Correct.
was a TA. He was going to Washington State. He went over there, and I think he killed four people.
Four people,
and the trial's coming up this year. I think in August. My wife's actually going to be covering it.
Oh, she really? Oh, wow,
Yeah.
That's cool. I have to look and see if there's some kind of movie on that and bring you both on. But when you go to Moscow, Idaho, a lot of the housing is kind of like almost a half semicircle around the university, and they have some housing on the campus. Most of it is just surrounding. So when this guy went, he was actually following these guys and surveilling these guys before he killed them. And and I thought, wow, I would have thought that Moscow, Idaho would have been University of Idaho would have been another safe university as well. But yeah, I'll have to watch that. So is she covering it as a reporter, Mike, or she's an attorney, right?
There's another channel she works with where they cover trials.
Okay.
And so she's going to cover it for them, and then she's got her own channel. But I think she's doing it for the other guys.
The other guys. Okay. Well, I'll have to watch that one, because that and he was a PhD criminologist or something like that, I think.
Yeah, he definitely studied criminal law.
He obviously thought he could get away with it. Let's roll the next scene. I think the next scene is what do I got it listed as? Oh, gun. So she's walking through Clyde through their one-horse town here, or their one stop. I don't even think they had stoplights back then. And he's trying to impress her. Like, yeah, I rob banks. That's what I do. And he shows her his gun, and of course she does what a typical woman does. Well, you're not going to use that. You're not going to use push, just like a typical, you can't beat that guy up. You can't do this, So, and he wants to prove that he's all that, right? And so he goes to robs a grocery store, right? So, the interaction between them, Danny, is typical of, I think, two young immature adults doing, how tough are you, right? I mean, you saw that she's manipulating him. How tough are you? Well, I'll show you how tough I am. He's trying to be cool.
Yeah.
But the only thing he's got is suit and his gun, and she says, "Oh, well, let's just see if you're up for it." Right?
Yeah, it's no different from today. The youngsters of the day still pushing the manhood or pushing the buttons, and when he sat there and says, "Well, I've been to prison and I cut my toes off because I wanted to get out of the work to do." At that point, I would have said the dude's weird and left. She hung out and she kept, well, you did that, you did this, you got to go do it. And so he had to man up and do it. What else are you going to do if he's trying to impress her and get her price,
Well,
because it was such a small town,
Yeah.
you know, everyone knew who she was.
Yeah.
And they identified these guys immediately. These
Yeah.
are robbing people she actually probably is friends with.
Right.
Which, you know, she just wanted excitement and to get out of where she was.
Yeah,
This is the bad boy effect, Mike, right? This is the bad boy, right? He's the bad boy and she's impressed by the bad boy. That's what this is all about. There ain't no future with this guy, but we see that all the time. Hey, there's the nice guy and then there's the bad boy guy, and women, for whatever reason, are excited about the bad boy until the chickens come home to roost. Then they want somebody to bail them out. But grinding poverty, that's part of this, right? And that was part of the whole time while we saw this explosion of crime, back and right after the Depression, grinding poverty, no opportunities. There was, this is the time frame where, we started seeing in the 20s and 30s the rise of communism as a possibility. So there was this struggle of those who have versus those who don't have. And one of the reasons why this movie is, or the fame of Bonnie and Clyde is, well, they're just poor and they're just taking money, kind of the whole Robin Hood effect, although you don't see much of that here. They're just killers, right? This is the same with the James gang, right? After the Civil War, they're just as you talked about, Danny. These are just killers. There's nothing Robin Hood about them, right? But that's the myth. The myth of Bonnie and Clyde is that, right? They're kind of Robin Hood-esque characters.
Well, he did let the farmer keep his money when they robbed the one bank. But the best bank robbery I did, and this tells you how bad it was in the times, when they went in to rob a bank and they didn't have any money.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that was, yeah. Oh, hey, sorry, you missed us. We closed 3 weeks ago. Yeah. That was funny. And then it was funny because he was embarrassed, so he had to have the bank manager come out and tell Bonnie that there was no money in the bank, and so she still mocked him anyway. So you're right, Mike. There was this dynamic between the two, where she keeps pushing him to be that bad boy guy that she fell in love with, but there's also a sexual thing. And I did do my research on this, and apparently, Clyde Barrow went to state prison, right, in Texas, and he was a slight guy. He wasn't a big guy, 150 pounds, 5'6", and there was a big guy in there, and he was his plaything for a while, right? And the allegation is Clyde did ultimately kill that guy. But because of that sexual abuse, he had a hard time with Bonnie. That's the backstory.
Actually, he didn't have a hard time with her.
He did not? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's true. He was unable to reciprocate her passion, right? So, and it's funny because as I was reading on it, somebody says that that's all bullshit. That's not true. But you see it is portrayed in the movie that he struggled with his, performing for Faye Dunaway, and that was going to be a big part of her excitement, I guess, and she just had to, I guess, live without it. So, but that's kind of the backstory, that he was sexually assaulted in prison, and that impacted his ability to perform with the beautiful Faye Dunaway. What do you think, Danny? No?
Poor guy.
Poor guy. Beautiful woman can't perform, right? So I guess he didn't have a little blue pill back then.
They needed. That's, I think, why she kept pushing him and everything else on the bad boy stuff, because I can't remember exactly what words she said, but your thing sexually just isn't cutting it when they were out in the field.
Yeah,
and it's like, I feel sorry for him.
Well, this is right after they get away here. She cuts him down, and then he cuts her down. Before he says, "Hey, you're beautiful. You could be anything," right? And then he said, "Well, you're just a waitress," right? So he can't perform. Suddenly he's the bad boy who can't perform, and she cuts him down, and he gives it right back at her, right? So, but they still stay together,
Sounds like they were married.
And they weren't married yet, right? I don't think they ever got married. I didn't see that, But back in the day, it's funny because, people didn't necessarily go through ceremonies. They just, okay, we're husband and wife, and that was a lot more accepted back in the day. It's government came in and said, no, you have to get a license, you have to do this, you have to do that. But that really wasn't mean, I don't know if you've ever back in feudal times, they would have ceremonies where the man and woman they hold hands together, and people would tie a cloth over their hands and say, okay, you two are now bound together as man and wife, and that was it. That was a ceremony, and of course they started registering it so they could tax them and do other things. That's and control what
So
happened with
government,
marriage, and then pass on wealth from one generation to another when there was wealth. But let's I think we got one more guy. Let's do CJ Moss here, or CW Moss. This guy's an interesting character because it's played by Michael J. Pollard, who was also nominated for Academy Award. He didn't win, but it's really a composite of two of the Borough Gang. It's W.D. Jones and Henry Methville. Well, that's kind of a cool name. Methvin, right? If these guys, if it was today's day and age, they would all be meth hypes probably. So, but here he is, and you see kind of the same dynamic. One, I like the car. What do you think of the car, Mike?
Oh, nice drop top, and they don't keep it for long, but it was a cool car. Like Danny said, there were some expensive cars in here.
Well, they probably were expensive back in the day too, but they certainly are expensive when they're restored now.
This one had a nice rumble seat.
Yeah, the rumble seat thing, that was awesome. That was a Model A that had Model A's or Model T's had one. I remember as a kid during the 60s, my dad had restored one, and it had a rumble seat, and we used to sit in the back and while he's driving around town.
Well, so she does the kind of same thing, that Clyde did with, I robbed banks, and she kind of says, well, you know what kind of car this is, right? And he's being a guy who gasses up cars and deals with cars. He rumbles off what it is, and she says, no, this is a stolen car. And of course, they're one. This is who we are. We're tough. Are you down with that? You know how to work on cars? How tough are you? Would you willing to do this? So you see this testing. I don't know. I'd say, hey, take off, dude. Just pay the bill, or don't. I'm staying. But this is, I think, the part I don't understand, where they just stop and they just pick somebody up and they're able to identify that, hey, this is a potential gang member here that we're going to bring in, and that he would just drop everything and go. Because I think the gas station is in his family, right? Which would not be unusual.
Yeah, I kind of got the impression the gas station was out of in his family, but also, somewhere along the line during that conversation, he said that he had recently gotten out of reformatory school, which was back then juvenile hall.
Right.
So he did have that criminal gene in him, as I will call it. And so,
well, just
he
was just the shaming.
Okay,
yeah, right. That's not real prison, right? You know what I mean? You want to be a real man, a man with a record. You want to be a real man? Why don't you come rob banks with us? I mean, that's the whole. I guess I could see this. I mean, you worked gangs, Danny. That's part of it, right? The allure, hey, be part of the gang, but in just this really short interaction, and that they're managed to co-opt this guy and get him to just leave his family and jump in to rob banks.
He's kind of why a lot of the reason people get into gangs is because it's a so-called family type thing, where you're the family of the gang takes care of you better than the family at home because mom and dad are never home and stuff. It could be the same thing here. He gets out of the reformer, and they throw him in a gas station as an attendant, and that's not really what he wanted to do. He wanted to do something better, or probably not have the family life he is. And these two are showing him or talking to him, hey, we can do better, and you come with us, and you're part of our family kind of thing, and we'll treat you better than you're getting at home, basically. And so he goes, okay, and goes in and takes all the money out of the till, and let's go party. So.
Let me show you how. Yeah, and we have an exciting life, which ultimately is really not all that exciting, right? So it's only as good as how much money you're able to steal.
So that and how many machine guns or how many Tommy guns you can get out of the armory later on in life.
Yeah, that was amazing how many guns they had, So, Mike, what do you think of this? Just pulling up. A couple of things I wanted. You saw like the gas station, the old gas pumps too, and you saw the signs on the wall, which was typical. Did you ever watch that? It's not Antique Roadshow. It's the one where the guys are driving around and they go Pickers. American Pickers.
American Pickers. That's a great show.
And something like that, those gas pumps would be worth a few grand now, particularly one that's looking really good, right? And then the signs, they pay a lot of money for those signs too.
Right.
And
And those old ones had gas pumps had glass on top. You actually could see part of it. And the advertising was very important. Companies they like Standard and all those.
Yeah.
That's where they came out. And this guy, he's sitting in a one-horse town too. And so I don't think he was pushed too much because he actually was a smart guy.
Yeah.
The character, and he let him push him a little bit, but ultimately he wasn't as easy as maybe they thought originally. He was good to the gang, and he was, like I said, he fixed cars, and you can see that during the movie, and helps out.
Yeah. Well, I just I have to go back. Okay, there was grinding poverty. He's got a job, so he's actually. I mean, I don't know what he's working. Is he just working for room and board and food? I don't know, but he's actually got some stability, whereas a lot of people back in those days didn't have stability.
True.
Right. So he had it, but he left it to go for excitement, right? Which is, I guess, that's what I see in the scene, and I do think that does happen. I don't want to say with the gangs, right? Some of it is they to some degree we glorify the gangster lifestyle, Danny, right? Whether it's you see it in rap, and look at P. Diddy. I mean, he went all those 30 years of having this glorified life, and he was just a predator. But people look at that, and they look at other guys with Notorious B.I.G. They look at these guys are bigger than life in their mind, and and they're seeing themselves as being part of that cultural part of that, which I would imagine was going through in the 30s as well. This is what we have to do to survive. This is okay. This is acceptable. What do you think? Same kind of thing with what's going on with our gangsters today, some of the gangs today?
Pretty much the same thought. These guys, you look at some of our criminals today, how they're glorified. Everybody, Richard Ramirez, after he got caught, for how many murders he did as a Night Stalker, how many women were writing him? How many women were going to visit him? How many women wanted to marry him? And he did get married. And it's the same thing with all these guys. It's Ted Kaczynski, I'm sure, had a whole bunch of people chasing him around, girls chasing him around, wanting to be with him. I don't get it.
Luigi Mangione.
Yeah.
Luigi. He's the latest guy, right? Even Charlie Manson had a love note. People. Charlie, a little short.
Yeah, Luigi is
killer. Yeah.
Luigi is the winner. They're making him a hero for killing a healthcare CEO.
Yeah.
Come on.
I
don't get it.
Even the Menendez boys.
Yeah.
There was women chasing them through letters while the trial was going on.
Yeah. It's still going on too.
And it's still going on, and they're probably getting more letters now because they're in the news. I did have to post on that because it's like, because we were all working when all that stuff happened, right? And
I did both trials.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys were vicious.
Yeah.
There's
other things that happened, and I can tell you when we're on the phone later, that never actually came out. And during the trial, there was some really bad stuff going on. And they should be staying right where they are.
Oh yeah. Okay. So you're saying not mitigating to help them, just
nothing mitigating. There was some really and the sergeant that was on that case while we did it in the courts, and some of the other deputies, they all live right next to me.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about it, but there was a lot of other things that never ever came out publicly that were bad.
Yeah. Carol O'Hara was the DA that did the second trial. She's a judge now, and she was a traveling DA would come over to Avalon Court on Fridays, and she had some stories to tell about the trial.
Yeah.
I think what most people, what I just said when I posted on Twitter, I said, okay, these were both adults. I mean, one was in college and one was out of college. They're claiming that they were sexually abused. There's scant evidence to show that. And after they killed their dad and wounded their mom, they went back out and reloaded the shotguns to come finish their mom off. I mean, that's vicious. I mean, you're not, you could walk away at any time. You're adults. You could walk away at any time. If it's really that dangerous, you can go, right?
Can't let go of that money.
yeah, they didn't want to go without the money, even if it was going on, which I'm not convinced it was. They could have left at any time. So it was about the money, you know. In some ways, it's about the excitement. That they wanted the excitement of having money too, the big life too, like Bonnie and Clyde, and they were willing to viciously kill their parents to get there. That's a little different, you know. You see in the movie here, they have some kind of kinship with their family. I think they respect their families, but their families end up writing them off. You know, you're on your own. You know, good luck.
Well, even Bonnie made a big deal. She had to see
Her mom.
her mom.
Well, she knew that her time was coming up, and she wanted to see her mom before that happened. But her mom said, "Yeah, you kind of chose your path in life. Good luck." Right.
And that scene where they did the you know, that picnic type thing, that was probably pretty much right on in how things were back then, because it was in the 60s. It was kind of the same too. You just go out in some park or some middle of some place, and the whole family would get together for a potluck one real quick, and then boom, it's all over with.
Yep, a few hours, and then everybody goes on their way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, I don't think those two idiots should get out. But and I'm glad that Nathan Hochman had said. I think what was this? He said, the evidence can't be verified, and it's so they don't deserve a new trial. So I don't think he's going to support it at all. I think the governor, he's looking at it. I'm reviewing the case, you know, and I think it's just political for him. I think he's going to say, I've reviewed the case, and so no, they're not going to get out. I think that's what he's going to do. You know, surprise the governor
only because he's got to clean up his mess that he made with
everything
else the last couple of years, because he wants to kind of redo himself so he can run for president. And
he's trying to. He told all the
reinvent himself.
He told all state workers they have to come back to work 4 days a week. Yeah, just a couple days ago.
I'll give you a real quick.
Why did you wait 6 years?
Yeah.
A real quick weird one about Menendez. Before the trial started, the first one, when they were still out on bail, they were captured on a picture, floor seats at a Knicks game, and it became a basketball card for a guard named Mark Jackson. So people didn't realize they were in the photo until years later, but you can clearly see them sitting there in this basketball card and the Menendez boys. And then a few weeks later, they're in trial, but it made it a valuable card. Oh my God, the Menendez boys.
Well, their attorney, Bernice Abrams, she handled a 211 that I ended up arresting these guys for 211. They robbed somebody with a shotgun, and I managed to find them going down Fountain Avenue, leaving town, and pulled them over. It ended up being them, and they had a shotgun in the car, and they had all this stuff in the car. And I was working on a one-man hoop, right? So I didn't. I was listening to my handheld. I was actually working a foot beat, and I heard the robbery, jumped in my car, and waited to where I thought, okay, they're going to go by this way, because it happened on Sunset. Quickest way out of town was Fountain Avenue, so I'm just sitting there at Plumber Park waiting for them to go by. Boom. There goes a car that looks like it might be it, and I follow them. They had their plate tipped up, right? So clearly they're trying to obscure their plate, and I ended up pulling over 3 people in the car, and they had the shotgun, and they had the property in the car. But I was listening to the description over the tactical radio and listening to more information over the broadcast. So I had 2 different things, and I wrote in my report that this was the information coming out. And she gets me on the stand. She goes, we have a tape. Where are they saying that the suspects are black? Where are they? You know, and she just get hammering away. And I'm like, I finally said, why don't you flip the tape over? And they flipped the tape over, and it's a tactical frequency. And of course, the description came out on the tactical. And so I had 2 attorneys hammering me, right? Because they had 2 defendant case. And the one guy goes, oh, okay. And she just kept hammering away at me. I'm like, finally the judge says, I think he proved that. I says, I'm ready to rule, because it was just a preliminary hearing. Held them to answer, and they ended up taking a plea. But yeah, so she was not a nice person. I had her a couple times. I thought, oh, God, wow. No wonder why they lost.
She got a lot of trouble for supporting perjury in the second trial.
Oh, did they? Did she?
Yes. I was standing behind her when the judge was going to take her. And
Yeah,
I thought
she was not a good person, because it's
no,
like,
not
hey,
at
the
all.
evidence, I just proved everything. What the hell why are you hammering me for, And unfortunately, I'm like, I'm just patiently waiting for the DA to handle it, right? And they did. All right, let's do one more scene we got before we got our break. And this one I labeled it as Gene Hackman because this is kind of first time he comes in the show. And he is Buck Barrow. He is Clyde's brother, and they're going to form the Barrow gang here. You see, he just got out of prison. And this is when we see his beautiful wife Blanche as well. And it's funny because Blanche, the whole thing about her character, she's uh, she tries to maintain this aloofness to the gang, that this is beneath her, that she's with these bank robbers, right? And she's that's what and she's waiting for to be introduced formally. I mean, all this stuff. I guess this is what a preacher's daughter does. She waits for all this stuff. But and here, so this is another woman though. She goes with the bad boy. Right?
Yeah.
She goes with the bad boy. She comes from a good family. I'm sure the preacher had some money, probably wasn't rich, but she goes with the bad boy, but completely different than Bonnie here. So hey, Bucky, he first thing he asks him about is, hey, is she as good in bed as she looks, right? That's the first thing he ends up handing when he gets Clyde off into the room, and he said, oh, even better, right? Which of course is a lie, but. So here he is, a very young Gene Hackman, right? What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't realize it was him in the movie until I seen it this last time, all the times before. But it's kind of funny. The girls are the same. They want to get the bad boy, they want to clean him up, and they want to reform him in their image. And that's what Blanche is trying to do here. She's trying to, because Gene Hackman or Buck, he kind of wanted to go do the bad thing, but kind of wanted to be with Blanche and get and straighten out. And it's just how women are. They want to take you and they want to remold you into their form of what they want, and then they divorce you and take all your money.
Because you're not exciting enough.
Yeah.
Right. You're not the man I married.
Yeah, because you spent 30 years changing me.
Well, and then you could tell right away that Bonnie, or Faye Dunaway, does not like Blanche at all.
Not
at all. And you can
it's
see that right away.
Whiny voice that she had, and that whiny laughter, and just everything about Blanche. Just like she played the part well.
Well, and here she is. She plays the skittish pastor's daughter when Moss comes out in his underwear, the old style underwear, Mike, and she's, oh, I can't look at him, I can't touch him, and he's just, hey, how you doing? Just like any other guy who's living a grinding poverty life. I mean, I got 2 sets of clothes, the one I'm wearing here and my underclothes, and the ones I got inside the house.
Yeah. And
this is probably not unusual for him, but she's putting on the airs like, oh, hold on a second. She's with a bunch of bank robbers, right? But I have to maintain a certain level of propriety, right? Which is what she tries to do in this movie. Right? Probably why she won her Oscar, right? She does pull it off pretty good.
Yeah, no, she was good.
So there we go. The thing about all these guys is how young they are too, right? So 67. All of these actors are really young. I had to look up Warren Beatty. I want to say is he 88? So he's I can't remember now. Maybe he's 90, but he's actually younger than Gene Hackman in this movie, or in real life, right? And but we have that with all of these incredible stars, because I would say Warren Beatty is still from the Hollywood Golden Age. What do you think, Mike? Hollywood Golden Age. He's one of those Hollywood Golden Age actors.
He is. He didn't do a ton of movies, but he did some good ones and ones that really stuck out, like Shampoo and some of those other ones. But yeah, he's 87. I just looked him up.
87. All right. Well, we have to look at what his first movie is. So, yeah, because he has the. I mean, unlike Gene Hackman, he's got the leading man good looks. Warren Beatty does here, right? And wasn't he dating a singer?
I think he dated everybody.
Well, I mean, and she wrote a song about him. You're so vain, right?
No. That's JFK Jr. was supposed
Oh, was
to
it?
be
Okay.
the subject.
Well, he
Yes.
Splendor in the Grass in 1961.
Right.
Remember that one? And
Yeah.
Roman
Big
Spring.
blood stamper. Yeah.
And so it goes all the way back to. So he was already a household name here when he got this movie, did this movie. Although I think this catapulted him. But hey, here's our guy. Here's a famous shot. Remember when we showed the picture before we started of Bonnie doing that shot? So they did replicate some of the activities, some of the pictures that were seen in real life.
What's interesting is how
movie.
they found the pictures after they had to abandon one of their hideouts in Missouri. And so that picture of her, which was just a negative at the time, that's when it was published. But it was their own photos they had taken that just got out because the cops got hold of them.
That's a similar story with the Wild Bunch with Bill Cassidy and Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. Remember they stopped at some storefront thing. The whole gang took a picture, and the Pinkertons found it, and then they were using it to track all these guys down. And that's when Butch and Sundance went to was it Argentina? So
Yeah.
similar stuff. They take pictures to document what we were doing tagger gangs when I was the chief over at and these guys would take pictures of their tags and then put it on their websites. So that we friended them. This is our strategy. We friended them. Yeah, pretending like we created some fake tagger gangs and we friended these guys, right? And so they would share their stuff. Oh yeah, I did this and this and this, and then we would write a search warrant on their computers, get all their stuff and all their comments, and we forgot everybody in their tagging crew, and then we'd go hit multiple locations, take them down, because they want to brag about their work, right? They want to take pictures of the work, and so you can't be a cool guy if you don't brag about it. Hey, good morning, Camp Gang, buddy. Hey, that's the same thing that happened here.
Oh, absolutely. So
here they are
they
talking
want to be
about
famous. It
what
was
was
a big
that?
deal.
Yeah. They want to be famous, and that was part of this. It was the notoriety. They read about themselves in the paper. They're listening to all these bank robberies that were credited to them that they didn't do. And as you saw the same dynamic with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, another great movie. It didn't do that one, but these and during this era, I mean, think about it. You're dirt poor. You're nothing, but you can be famous, and that's kind of like what's going on with a lot of these gangster criminals, right? Annie, the whole gangster lifestyle. They can be famous just in their mind. I mean, Stanley Tukey Williams. Everybody knew his name in L.A., but he was a vicious killer ahead of the Crips, right?
Right.
And that's the dynamic you see with these guys here.
What is it called? Andy Warhol's 15 Minutes of Fame.
Yeah, absolutely. But and this one, because they did the movie, that's the interesting thing. They did the movie. We'll remember this. It's kind of like Wyatt Earp too, right?
Right.
Wyatt Earp is always a legend because of that. Even though these guys are killers, they're romanticized as the killer couple because of the movie. You see that with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Same kind of thing for real true life kind of stuff, right? And then some of the stories that the late Joseph Wambaugh, he just passed away. He wrote The Onion Field. Danny, you did that movie with me. That story of what happened to Ian Campbell and I forget Hedinger's first name, Carl Hedinger. The death of Officer Campbell in that onion field is forever immortalized because they wrote the book and, more importantly, probably the movie. And this was what makes our pop culture. This was part of what the show's all about, right?
When this movie came out, two of the gang were still alive. Blanche was alive and W.D. Jones. And Blanche actually approved her depiction in the original script. It changed later, and she got upset about it and made a lot of complaints. But she especially complained about the actress. Yeah, very much so. But they were alive, and they were brought back in front of the camera again because, gosh, we're the ones who actually did this.
Well, you know what? They have to make it entertaining too. I think that's part of it. Dramatization. I just they have to make it interesting. So there needs to be a little drama in these movies. Particularly, we did what's the last true story one we did, Danny? We did. I can't remember. It wasn't the Clovich. We did a true story about a serial killer. Well, it was that one was Clovish Killer was about BTK, right? So, but they have to make it interesting, right? And they kind of put some scenes, even though it was a fictional story, it's based on a true story. They had to put some scenes in to make it more exciting, and that's probably what they do here.
Yeah, well, you're selling something.
Your
sound is off there, Danny.
The Boston bombing was another one where.
Yes, that's right.
That and the BTK movie. Those two were they put in a lot of extra drama just to keep it a 2-hour movie or a 90-minute movie instead of a 15-minute.
Yeah, 15
short.
Minute. Except that was a great shootout in Watertown with the cops and the bad guys and
that was
the Boston bombing. That was awesome, and that's all based on a true story. All right, we are at break time. Martine, are we ready to roll with the break? And Eastland Bookholder, we'll talk to you when we get back. Camp, thank you for joining the show. We'll see you in a bit. Martine, you ready to roll?
Yes.
All right. See you in a bit. Time for a potty break, guys. Seventh inning stretch.
Okay.
There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then. There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then.
Not 10 o'clock.
Hey, welcome back to Morning Coffee with the Chief. We are reviewing the movie Bonnie and Clyde, which also stars the late Gene Hackman, kind of in an honoring of Gene Hackman. You can watch my show every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And, you could go ahead and roll the next scene, Martine. It is Bonnie's poetry. And, one of the interesting things is they started corresponding with the newspapers, right? And she sent poetry in, and that really, she really did write poetry. Is what she's got one that's called, let's see, The Trail's End, and it's a lengthy one, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. And then the other one is Suicide Gal by Bonnie Parker, and this one's a handwritten note. Let's see, but it's not bad. Not something that I would attempt. Let's say I'll just read the first phrase here. You've read the story of Jesse James, of how he lived and died. If you're still in need of something to read, here's the story of Bonnie and Clyde. So it's and she goes into, so kind of interesting, right? And but she's reading her poetry in the scene. you'd like to think these folks are uneducated, but she's not. I don't know if you got a chance to look at some of her poetry, but I see it as pretty good. Let me see if there's a first stanza from Suicide Gal. Let's see. We each of us have a good alibi for being down here in the joint, but few of them really are justified if you get right down to the point. So that's not bad. So she did write poetry, and they started sending these in, and which helped to also build their fame, right? This is so they not only they want excitement, they wanted fame, right? And you can see that here. And of course, Clyde is supporting her in her writing, and people are asking questions. She just wants, so I don't know. What do you think? Writing poetry and sending them to the newspaper, Danny? Not too bad, the poetry, right? But definitely want people to know who you are.
Yeah, it's all about the notoriety, and it's kind of weird writing poetry, but she's building herself up, or building up the Barrow gang by telling their story. So it's interesting, but it's all about notoriety and getting out there. And surprised they didn't send pictures with it, but
well, he couldn't perform, so they couldn't send any pictures. But yeah,
that's the other thing we were talking about. This point here, it shows that she's kind of educated, because she is reading some pretty good stuff. Buck, he's sitting there listening to it, and he's kind of appreciating it, and you could see that. But where did Buck get that Polaroid? Cameras weren't cheap back then.
He stole it.
He stole it,
and all the film that came with it too.
Yeah, they stole it. Stole the weapons. It's obviously they went to. The thing is, it wasn't hard to see who had money, right?
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't the state you had. Your house is painted. Everything's well kept. You got people taking care of your place. So where do you go? You go to where the money's at, and you take the toys they have to sell. Sometimes people, they don't have cash. You take you see it. We see street robberies all the time. Hey, give me your money, give me your watch. I mean, God, during the whole COVID time, people were getting socked up for their Rolexes. Remember those follow home gangs that were, all the rage for a couple of years? I think they only finally recently got control of those idiots, but they were following people all over, socking them up for their watches. You see people driving $100,000 cars and getting socked up for their, $80,000 watch.
And you also had the migrant gangs that were going into high dollar neighborhoods. That's down here in La Jolla, Rancho Bernardo, or some of those high end northern San Diego County neighborhoods were getting hit hard. Fortunately, the DA here did some about it, but the ones up in LA County at that time, because I think Palos Verdes got hit hard. I'm sure the Malibu area, they got hit hard by these gangs, and because they were in affluent areas, and sadly up there the DA didn't do anything about it. But
I'm probably in a good spot because I'm not in a big house. It's by choice. I don't want a big house. Who the hell wants to take care of a big house? So this is the scene where they get in a shootout, and I need to point out that most of the victims of Bonnie and Clyde's rampage were cops, and you see that in this movie. A couple of them get shot, but this is in this scene, a couple of them get shot. And the other thing is, I think this is the scene that probably won Blanche there, the Academy, her running around with the spatula in her hand, and they end up just scooping her up as she runs, and of course Bonnie wants to kill her. Yeah, most of the victims here were the cops, probably untrained guys who got swore in, given a uniform and a badge, and said, "Okay, you're the police now," right? Because we're talking at a time when standards weren't that high. Maybe some guys that served in the military, maybe in this case, probably World War I, and now they're cops, little training, and they're going up against folks and they got mostly handguns, and our gang here, handguns and shotguns. Our gang has machine guns, right? But it is so when we talk about the romanticization of these guys, they did kill a bunch of folks, and mostly all cops. In fact, I got the list right here. Let's see. They don't say whether they're all cops here, but I did look it up, and most of them were cops. See, deputy, constable, town marshal, prison guard, patrolman, constable. So it looks like 12 people killed. Looks like 10 of them were cops. So.
They were trying. Here they were robbing to get money in a time where no one had money. But the more popular, I don't know if popular is the right word, the more they were out in the public's eye, the more they had to hide.
Yeah.
They couldn't go anywhere. Everyone recognized these guys. So whatever freedom they were trying to get from the money, they definitely didn't get it. I mean, it backfired on them tragically.
Yeah, they lost it. You get back to this movie came out, or not the movie, the actual incident came out 13 years after the end of World War I. So there was probably, like you said, Pat, maybe a handful of trained people that knew firearms, but you could tell through the movie, and you can actually go back to that time and see the tactics they used. They were atrocious. It was bad.
Right, but you know what I mean? Yeah, it's see, copper wire phones. Law enforcement probably brought their own weapons often. Yeah, you're right. They probably had to buy their own weapons.
Yeah, everything was probably their own. Plus, back then, in the 30s, you were lucky to have electricity, let alone a telephone. Those were almost, I think, less than half the households in the United States had telephones, and they were in the bigger cities, not out in the boonies.
I was reading a shootout with a bunch of cops, circa this time, right? The Depression, in which the criminals were heavily armed, and the cops were all pretty much just armed with handguns. They didn't expect to be dealing with a nest of criminals, heavily armed criminals, and they all had maybe what was in their gun. They didn't have extra ammunition, nothing. So in this case, they probably knew they were taking down somebody, so they probably had their shotguns and handguns, but these aren't people who thought we're getting into shootings every day, and they certainly aren't trained in it. I mean, if you look at from the time we came on, I came on in '83. You predated me, Danny, by a couple years. From let's say the beginning. So let's say 1980 till 2000. Even our training had progressed, right? In that 20 years, it had progressed significantly based upon lessons learned.
You go back to the SLA shooting. I think is since. That would be in our time. The SLA shooting was the start of modernizing the training and everything for law enforcement. After that, LAPD started the SWAT team. Then you get into our time. In the 80s, we still carried wheel guns with two extra rounds, or not rounds, but two extra speedy loaders. So we had a grand total of 18 rounds. With a modern day Beretta, has 16 plus 1.
Yeah,
16.
You had 45 or
totally
46 rounds. Yeah.
Totally outgunned until the late 80s. And only because something happened and Sherman Block actually decided we need to do, arm our guys better. Then we just passed the anniversary of the North Hollywood shootout, where the two guys walked in the bank. And even then, LAPD was so undergunned that they went into a gun store, which they knew the guy, and got weapons from them so they can shoot it out with these knuckleheads. And it was only until a SWAT team guy in shorts.
Right. And it was, and they happened to be training fairly close.
Yeah.
And they were able to get engaged. But a lot of that was policy. I've been slamming policy and relates to the fires, but even, because it was really poor policies that helped to, I explain, when you understand complex theory, so I'm going to get into this brainiac shit, right? So when you look at public policy and you understand complex organizations, right? There's the thing called the theory of the sand pile. And what happens is as you make one policy decisions after another, you drop a grain of sand onto the sand pile. Right. And as you keep doing this, eventually there's going to be a slide, right? It can sometimes be a small slide, sometimes it'll be a big slide, but there's going to be a slide. And so as you continue to get more complex systems, there's going to be a breakdown, right? And so then after something like this happens, like the fire happens, you start looking back at the different policies. Well, what did we do to cause this slide? Now they're all pretending like, oh, it's just a once in a lifetime wind event, which is not true. But it's dropping these different without looking at the policy itself to make sure they're not creating what they call an organized criticality. So you're organizing your weakness by engaging all these different policies that don't really work together well, right? So that's organized criticality, theory of the sandpile, and that's why you get the slide, right? I don't know why I got down that path, but that's
So is that why they say feces rolls downhill? Is that theory?
it's it can, I think Governor Newsom's he's feeling that now, and Karen Bass is feeling that now. But let's see, we got I got to get back here. Seeking fame. Well, I think let's roll that one, because this is what we're talking about, seeking fame, and they are seeking fame. They're sending their poetry in. They're reading about themselves. They're also telling people when they rob, this is the Barrow Gang, right? That we are the Barrow Gang, right? And the interesting thing is, this is the robbery where they're doing that, stand to that we don't want to hurt anybody. We're here. We're the Barrow Gang. They're not hiding it. But as after the robbery is interesting, because they end up interviewing one of the guards who gets shot at, and he says, so this is a big event. So the 15 minutes of fame now gets spread to everybody, right? That's
right.
Yeah, right. So and you see that some of these small towns, they might have a monument. This is where Bonnie and Clyde did this and that, right? You see that when you go through. Did you ever go traveling Route 66 or something like that, and you stop and there's this little thing? This is where so and so did this, right? And it's just a plaque, little plaque. And if it's not stolen by some metal thieves, taking the brass plaques away, but this is a big event, not only now for the town, because they were robbed by Bonnie and Clyde, and everybody's going to come and pay attention now. Their town actually is on the map, right? So the fame, and you saw this with a lot of the other criminals too. Babyface Nelson, Dillinger. They talk about where all of these different crimes happened, and seminal events in the world of criminals. But that's what I see here. Now they're seeking fame. They're okay with their faces being out there. They're enjoying it.
A lot of notoriety.
Just like the gangsters today, until they get the sentence, right? Did you ever watch those? You ever see on YouTube where they have things where a person gets sentenced and then they collapse? Like,
yeah,
oh my God, and they 100 years. Oh my God, and the guy's like 20 years old and he's going to be in prison for 100 years, and then suddenly it all. Yeah, that's right, Tom. We just looked him up. I think he's 87. Warren is 86. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Maybe look at, and Gene Hackman died at 95. I mean, yeah, that's. Well, yeah, he did have a good life. They both had good lives, and some of it we know about from the tabloid sections, and a lot of it we don't know about. Right? Let's see. My stepdad was a plumber, a municipal water system certified, and saying his turds will not roll uphill. All right.
You open that gate.
All right. So so Mike, they're seeking fame, right? Not unusual. That's what we saw in Hollywood: sex, drugs, and rock and roll. The bad boys, heavy metal. I mean, just look at what these different rap labels call themselves: Bad Boy Entertainment. What was Suge Knight's? His was Death Row Records.
Yeah.
They're seeking fame and infamy, right? That's what they're doing, and that's what our guys are doing here. This is they weren't going to make it rich. They weren't going to build a company, but they were going to get their names in the newspaper by robbing banks. Right?
Yeah. They talk about some of the things left behind. That car, quote, the Bonnie and Clyde car, it's up in Prim, Nevada in a museum right there in one of the casinos.
Oh, it is? Really?
Yeah.
Because there is a Bonnie and Clyde museum in Louisiana. And at one time it was in the store where they bought their sandwiches before they got shot down. That's where the museum was, but it had recently moved. It's like 7-8 miles down the road or something like that. But it's got a name, the Bonnie and Clyde Shootout Museum or something like that. Let's see.
That's it.
Yeah, Bonnie and Clyde Ambush Museum.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm here. The cops are chasing them and they're shooting out of the car. Here's our guy. He's saying, I was within, I was in fear for my life, or I was inch of my life, whatever he was saying. But this is still happening today. We're still chasing cars. They're still shooting at the cops who are chasing the cars, right? And I sometimes have to remember that, hey, this has been going on for 100 years. Since
Yep.
the advent of a horse. We're chasing them on horses. Now we're chasing them in cars, and they're shooting it out. And what it never, as Bonnie, I think Bonnie says, it's never not going to end good for Bonnie and Clyde, right? And it doesn't. This is predictable what's going to eventually happen to them, but they are having fun along the way. Here's the old farmer talking about, he let me keep my money, right?
Didn't take his money, so.
Pat, check your text real quick.
All right. Oh, you have to leave early. All right. Not a problem, dude. Danny will have to fill in for you. Okay. Do a Vulcan mind link and give him all the information you have, and I'm sure he can cover for you.
All right, guys. I apologize. Have a great day.
Yeah. Live long and prosper. I think. How do you do that? Live long and prosper. So.
All right.
So we are. This is nerd pop culture minefield. So I think that's what this is about. Hey, tell your wife good luck on her gig, monitoring that trial. So I think he's gone already. I think we're just looking at a face. All right,
That's
Danny.
okay.
Just he keep there. I'll just throw questions at him as he sits up there frozen.
Kind of like it was with last time I was here. I was just a little
Yeah, you were. Well, here's the other thing: jurisdiction. So these guys are chasing him. I probably was it from Texas or Louisiana? I can't remember which one to chase him from. But the cop said, "Hey, I'm not going to get killed going into somebody else's jurisdiction."
Yeah, there was chasing them from Louisiana into Oklahoma.
And Oklahoma.
And it's funny because it was a Texas Ranger, Frank Hammer.
Yeah.
That went up and. Yeah, I like that. When I'm not going to risk my life in Oklahoma, and neither am I.
to die in Oklahoma, oh my God!
Frank Hammer, he was probably the only one that didn't get a picture with him. Was upset because he got a picture with Bonnie and Clyde.
Well, he was getting humiliated. I think that was part of the problem, right? And I didn't check to see how much of that story was true, but I'm sure that a certain amount of it is true. But he's lucky not to have been killed. I mean, when I just talk about, of the 12 people murdered by these guys, 10 of them were cops. That's
and Frank Hammer wasn't. He was the one that caught him at the end and put together the ambush. But the tactics, I could not imagine just stopping my car out in the middle of nowhere, no radios back then,
right?
And you walk down this dusty old dirt road to walk up on 4 notorious killers. But
this was also before, what do we used to, Gardner versus Tennessee. This was also, you could shoot fleeing felons back then. I mean, there's a lot of different rules of engagement, right? If you just walked up on these guys and start blasting, I don't think anybody would bat an eyelash, right? Back then
you'd probably,
and look at that. I lose Danny. Danny, you're freezing up. Go ahead and log out and come back in, hopefully.
Let me see what happened here.
That's you and Mike doing the Vulcan mind link. He's transferring that information to you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's roll the next. This is Gene Wilder. So this is the scene with Gene Wilder and his fiance and or girlfriend. Yeah, I think it's his fiance. And I think one of the funniest parts of this scene is after they kidnap him and they're asking him questions and she gives her age, and then Gene Wilder. Do you remember that scene? I thought that was hilarious because she's obviously older than he thought.
Oh yeah, that was funny.
That was funny.
I'm 32.
And what? But they're obviously, and they're taking a nice car, right? They're looking for the nice car when they steal it. And
he had the nice car. I was sitting out over there, and I'm going to take it.
I had to look this up. I had to look it up to see, is it true? Now, I told you the names of the characters are different in the movie than in real life. But was it true that they followed the car and their car that was stolen and then turned around and went in the other direction? Then Bonnie and Clyde turned around and followed them. That it's absolutely true. That's how it happened.
Wow.
And they pulled them over and kidnapped them. And
that's wild.
That is wild, right? And now they're just kind of a little intimidation, a little bit of having fun. And this is, what I recognize is a pretty dangerous spot for these guys because obviously they're not beneath killing people, and these guys aren't necessarily poor, so they're not really anybody that Bonnie and Clyde could necessarily relate to. This is about humiliation, I think, with these guys. So, yeah, what do you think, Danny?
His Gene Wilder's character probably had a pretty good clientele back then, because on top of the Depression going on, there was a lot of death, and he was an undertaker, so he probably stayed pretty busy and made a small fortune doing what he was doing. And the best part of it is when Bonnie asked him what he did for a living, and he told her the truth.
I'm an undertaker. Get him out of the car. Yeah, but they're all having fun here, and they did drive around. See, back then, no people around, no cameras, phones, or improvement in forensics. If the suspects are dead, who would contradict your story? Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. You're commenting on, the different rules for the cops back then. Because I think, I'm trying to think, Danny, Gardner in Tennessee, was that 1950s or 1960s? I think a lot of those came in the 60s under the Warren Court, right?
Yeah, I think it was all the 60s, because that's when the big civil rights movements were going on. And
Miranda came in, Escobedo. I mean, a bunch of all that stuff came in around that time. So it was kind of game on in the 1930s, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of saw that with, when we look at the old gangster movies too, Al Capone and shooting Chicago up, the south side of Chicago up, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. I mean, they actually dressed up as cops. So it was a different time. And the cops, some of these, a lot of this stuff, there was a guy named, I think it's Vern Miller. He was part of the Pendergrass gang, the Pendergrass gang was in Missouri. And Truman was affiliated with them. He wasn't part of it. He was kind of their guy that they kept moving forward to maintain some legitimacy, but he was a former cop, and then he became a contract killer for them, and he was ultimately murdered himself. But yeah, so law enforcement, it was a blur sometimes between law enforcement and the criminals, and certainly there were a lot less rules for the cops back then, but also there's never really any rules for the criminals either, but it's just whatever. Hey, Penny, how you doing? Welcome to the show. We are doing this show because guess who's in the show? Gene Hackman is in the show, and Gene Hackman was nominated for an Academy Award for the show. He didn't win it, but I would say this is probably his first big role. It made him famous. He went on to do The French Connection and some other great movies, winning Academy Awards and other nominations. But the person who did win, it plays the Blanche Barrow here, and she did a good job. But here in this scene, they've kidnapped a couple, which is based upon a true story. And they've gone out for French fries and burgers. And this is pretty soon they're going to ask him what he does for a living. And he's going to be let out of the car because they find out that Eugene is Gene Wilder, plays the character. And, it's funny because he's getting comfortable here with them. And he says, I don't got the right burger.
Yeah.
You just kind of eat what you got there, Gene.
And CW goes, oh, must be yours. Here, you want it?
Have it? Yeah. And no, that's okay. And he already took a bite out of it. And then, of course, this is when he finds out his fiance is much older than she's putting on. Yeah. So I wonder why they didn't use their real names. Probably because maybe they were still alive in the film and in the movie and didn't want their real names used. It
could have been, yeah. That was classic with the burger.
Well, it's like, wow, I think I'm just hoping to try and get out and survive, right? I'm not worried about, what kind of burger I'm going to get or if I get the right burger. Yeah.
It's like, you order your food and you and your radio car partner get your food and you go park and he grabs it and he grabs your stuff. And then it's the same thing. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Here you go. After it's half done.
Yeah, that's okay. You keep it. I'll eat this.
I'll go back or do something else.
Yeah, right after the Roaring Twenties, Tom, and also you had James Cagney, Public Enemy #1. I thought about doing that movie too, because that's a fantastic movie, Public Enemy #1. And what the other one with James Cagney that I really like is White. I think it's White Heat. Mom, look at me! I'm at the top of the world. You remember that movie where he ends up, he's in a shootout and he's at the top of this, I think, refinery or something, and he blows up and burns to death. But he plays a psycho killer in that movie. But I like James Cagney. I haven't the old. I think I did High Noon, and I did the Maltese Falcon, which was a cool show. I did that with John Bayless, and I'm trying to think. And Danny R. Smith, and it was pretty good, because I like Humphrey Bogart stuff too.
Yeah, we're
But
talking about things in the 30s. I was thinking The Untouchables is another one, and I think you already did that one too. Is it's kind of based on factual incidents, but
it's a lot more dramatization in that one. This was
the way they
Connery.
did things back then. There's no search warrants, no this, just kicking the door and blowing stuff up.
Yeah.
And that's probably how it was. I mean, obviously, it was how it was back then.
Yes, it's a lot more rules now than it was back then. But let's see, what does it say? The cost of the movie is fabulous. Let's see, the cost. Let's say the cast of the movie is fabulous. Gene Hackman and Wilder as supporting actors, good leads. Yeah, what I really liked about the movie is you didn't hear me earlier, but I think let's see, Beatty was nominated. Faye Dunaway was nominated. The guy that played C.W. Moss was nominated. Gene Hackman was nominated, and
Estelle.
Estelle. Yeah, she was not, and she won.
And
she won. And so a lot of people were nominated, and then it was nominated for Best Picture. I think Best Costume. It won for Best Costume. So it got a lot of nominations. And I imagine the two supporting actors were competing each other for votes, so that's why they probably lost out. But they both did a great job. But yeah, this was a great cast, good ensemble cast, and they all did a really great job. I didn't look to see if they had trouble on set at all, but they blended well in this movie together. And let's I think we did. Did we do the? I think we did the Gene Wilder scene, right? We already did that.
Yeah, we just finished that.
Yeah, so the real name of the guys, in real life, it was Henry William Darby and Sophia Stone. So those were the names of the two people. Like obviously they're named differently in the movie, but that's what their names were in real life.
Wonder if they got married.
I didn't check. I don't know. I guess I probably could have done a little research and asked.
Nah, that's just. You're 32.
Yes. So let's. The next scene is it's the shootout, and Buck ends up dying. Now I did show that picture at the beginning of the film. They get into a shootout and then they end up in a field. So obviously there was a lot of people, and I had to read on it. In addition to cops, they had some military guys there, and so they definitely had the numbers on their side. And I believe 2 cops were killed in the shootout too. So it wasn't like they weren't, they ambushed them and nobody was hurt. Let's see. I'm trying to see if I see Texas. I could be wrong. I'm not seeing Iowa. So this is an Iowa shootout. Yeah, wow, they got a lot of coppers who were killed in Texas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, 6 people killed in Texas. Wow, that's. You get some training for those Texas lawmen, I guess, But they're I forget where they're at. They were in a building when this shooting started because there's so many of them. They had them cornered. But
they rented a house. It looked like probably an old farmhouse that they had rented. And the delivery guy saw something that was the kid. First of all, he got a crappy tip, but the delivery guy saw something that just didn't feel right, and he went back and notified the cops. So, and then they got together, and their version of a SWAT team.
Yeah, it was funny because he went and noticed the sheriff, but when they came back, there are a lot of city cops, so they're blue.
Yeah.
So, it's it's we were spoiled because we're resource rich here in LA County, right? And whenever we had something big, we had a ton of people to draw on, and if we didn't have enough, we could hit up LAPD. But you're thinking this is in the boondocks. The sheriff might be one or two other people on his staff, so he's got to hit the town marshal and get help from the town marshal to muster the resources. And in this case, I think they tapped into some local military base to get some more people to support them. And that's it, Starkweather. Yeah, I was trying to think of that name, Tom. Starkweather, Charles Starkweather, and I forget the name of the gal that it was with Starkweather, and that was the killer couple. We were talking about killer couples at the beginning, and Charles Starkweather, I think, was the one I was talking about. I can't remember the name of his girlfriend, and I think she was only 14 when he started his rampage and killed a bunch of people. But they had a lot of resources on this one, but immediately it doesn't go well for them at first, the cops, but then they finally get the upper hand on our guys, and Buck gets, they get away though, I think, from the original thing, and then they go into a field, and then they get cornered in the field.
Yeah. Did you like their version of a Bearcat?
Of the that's right. I saw that. Yeah,
that's Bearcat. That's the original Bearcat.
I go, wow. That's why you said the military was there, and so a Bearcat guy it's a kind of a civilianized. I don't want to say it's a tank because it's not a tank, but it's a bullet resistant vehicle that could probably resist most rifle, not 50 cal, but most rifle and handgun rounds. And they brought one in with them, which I thought was cool.
Anything that a civilian would have type of weapon is what a Bearcat can stop. You're right. It won't stop at 50 cal, probably not. But I got a kick out of it. They're in a big armored car, and Buck Barrow and his wife are running out with a mattress.
yeah. And I think he gets hit on this, right? I think
and this is where he throws the grenade, and it goes up underneath one of the cop cars, and it blows up. And then he takes a round in the skull.
In the skull, yeah. And so, and I did check. He survived for a few days before he passed away, Buck here. And of course, their car's ready to go, ready to escape. Let's see. Texas was still in the Wild West, and to the extent back then, we talked about the police training was just not up to snuff there at Camp Can, and Texas was still Wild West, and to the extent back then, lots of open space, not a lot of people, a little police presence, and with unfortunately not a lot of training and firepower. Yeah, we did talk about that a little earlier. And this one, though, they had a Bearcat. They had an armored vehicle. I saw that too. I have to tell you, having gotten the money for Bearcats here in LA County, I lost my enthusiasm because there was so much money to maintain. Because you buy it, and the way grants work, you buy it, but then you own it in terms of sustaining the cost to maintain it. And so if you have it in your unit, then the cost for maintaining goes up exponentially, particularly as it gets older. So to me, it's like, okay, what do we use this once or twice a year? And we only use it for show. We're not really using it for tactical deployments, and we're spending a ton of money to have a resource that you rarely ever use, So from a financial standpoint,
SCP has a couple of them, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And now they probably have a good chance. They have, obviously they're going to use them more often, but everybody goes, we need a Bearcat at our station. We need this, we need that. And I was doing federal grants. No, we don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't. No, we don't. Let's just focus on training on how to shoot better and give you the equipment you need there. And because our goal is just to contain and pin them down, and hopefully until the cool kids get there to take care of them, right? And if we have to take them out, we take them out. But because even you think about it, you're not going to be patrolling around in the Bearcat. So when the shooting starts, somebody's got to go in, jump it up, start it up and drive it to where the event is at. By the time you get there, it's over with. So I really became death on getting more money for Bearcats, because I said, this is a waste of money. I'm not advocating for this stuff. But when you don't need that. Yeah, when you're controlling all the federal money come in, everybody wants their cool toy, right? And so I was like, okay, how does it fit with the the national strategy and the local strategy for dealing with terrorism. That's how I win. I don't care about cool stuff. I care about that. And that, some people hated me for that, but that's the way it is. So
if you're going to spend a bunch of money on cool stuff, get drones, get a good drone program going on.
Yeah.
And
let's see, armored troop carrier for small arms, maybe not a BAR. Yeah, BAR would be too much. I loved my guys, but I don't think I'd want to give them a BAR. It depends. I was dealing with a situation where a guy had a grenade. Right, it was in Carson. At least that's what we thought. They described it. Sounded like a grenade, and we didn't have anybody trained on the AR-15. Right, that was there that night. And I said, all right, who's a Marine? Guy raises his hand. I says, you're trained. Go get get high ground on this guy. And if he comes out with that grenade and throw it, you got to shoot him, right? That was my plan. And we used a helicopter to help call him out. But it's funny because it's like, oh God, if he has to shoot him, I'm going to be, how come you gave an untrained guy, I have to answer all these policy issues, but when you're out there making a tactical decision, it's just common sense, right? All right. I need somebody who knows how to shoot, been a Marine, take the high ground, take a spotter with you, and
it was after the Northridge or the North Hollywood shooting that ARs started coming out in the field, and then it was only to certain guys because the stations would only have a handful of ARs. And now I think, like when I went to Parks Bureau, they had an AR for everybody there.
Yeah, and it was the whole mindset. But they didn't maintain the proficiency and skills. That was part of the problem.
That's shooting a rifle is a larger perishable skill than shooting a handgun, mainly because you're going off and blowing off rounds all the time. And your handgun, you're there at the mobile range, but to go out and go shooting 223 rounds just for fun, you're not going to do it because they're $1 a piece and we're cheap.
Yeah. And so getting a military guy that's trained is probably better off because they spent probably, particularly if they were infantrymen, they've spent a lot of time shooting their M16. So. But here we are, he's in the field, and now they're taking rounds. And this is true. I had to look it up. They did try to escape. They got hung up on a log, and they had to escape through the woods. Bonnie and Clyde did, and obviously Buck and Blanche got left behind. So we showed that picture earlier before we started. That this is the field that this happened in. When we saw that picture, this is a portrayal of that shooting and the end result with Buck on the ground and Blanche being taken into custody. And they were prepared. They fired from cover. They didn't just roll right up on them. And you see them here, and they're using rifles. So the cops learned, I guess. Here's Clyde getting. I think he's already hit in this movie, but he's trying to get out of there.
Yeah, here they had rifles. They didn't have Tommy guns, and the rifles weren't autoloaders either. They had to rack every round, so they weren't as quick as because I believe they still had a Tommy gun in that car when they escaped that house. They left all their hand grenades and a lot of their big guns, but they still had a couple of Tommy guns.
There's Buck, and it's so they were holding back with their rifles and just firing from long range, which is worked out well for them. Which is there's our Bonnie. These guys are trying to escape.
They head for the other car, shoot it, knock the hell out. Yeah, they did.
They did that too. Yeah. Yeah, we got your car back for you.
Cars, boats. What do you take? What movies do you have me watching?
Hey,
a million runs into a boat, a million.
Bonnie and Clyde stole this. Just put it on display and a nickel a view, and maybe you'll make some money off it, right?
I'm surprised it's not at the car museum at the Riverside Hotel in Laughlin. Don Laughlin had everything else in there.
There's a mafia museum there, and I had Buzz Williams on my show, and his grandpa and his dad were part of the initial gangster squad. So his grandpa started it, the gangster squad in L.A., where they kind of roughed up the gangsters and told them to leave town. The whole Mulholland Falls crew. And he said, "Oh yeah, that stuff's true. That's exactly what they did to him." Again, before the '60s, right?
Yeah.
And then his grandpa retired, and his dad replaced him on the very same crew. So he had all these stories of mobsters, and he had all these records of these mobsters from his grandpa and his dad, and some of the other crew members that his dad had kept. And Buzz was a former sergeant from Long Beach Police, and he gave all of his records to the Mobster Museum. And
Okay,
that's,
so that was where the basis of the movie LA Confidential came from.
yeah, L.A. Confidential. They did a movie called The Gangster Squad. You see a
Yeah.
little bit in the remake of Black Dahlia. Some of that, the idea of the Gangster Squad and how it worked. Oh yeah, yeah. So, but it's interesting talking to somebody. He says, "Oh yeah, the Purple Gang. They came to town. Purple Gang's from Detroit, so I was a little familiar with them because I grew up in the Midwest, and they were Jewish gangsters." And he said, "Oh yeah, we waited outside a bar because they were doing extortion, and we convinced them that they needed to leave. It wasn't healthy for them to stay."
Smart. Okay,
So
so
here's-
Clyde, or here's Buck is down, shot in the head,
Yeah, he's down.
and his wife is freaking out, saying, "You killed him! You killed him!"
Yeah.
That was no different than
Well, this we knew it was. What is? I don't have her poetry up. Then it's the end for Bonnie and Clyde as one of the end of her poem, I think. But let's roll. We got one more scene left, and it is the end for Bonnie and Clyde, is what I named this scene. And this is, they've gotten away. They've recovered to some degree from their shootings. They're both wounded, and C.J. Moss, he helps take care of them and nurses them back to health. And he's doing it, and it's, I think it's either grandfather or his father. I think it's his
I got the
father.
impression it was his dad, and his dad was taking care of him, but his dad knew who he was, didn't want
Yeah.
his boy hanging out with some no good hoodlums, and
Right.
ratted him out. Made a deal.
And set them up, right? So
He set him up, saved his son's life because he told his son, you don't get back in the car with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Moss goes, because he's looking out the window. I wonder how much time he got, but Dad did score a deal with him. But what I got a kick out of is the daddy's sitting there making breakfast. He slaps him across the face with a hand towel, going, "Your mom would be so mad at you for having that tattoo. Why'd you get it?" And it was an ugly tattoo. But Bonnie said it was nice.
Yeah, I never got, I wasn't really a tattoo guy, and never got them. And I have to say, I'm not really gals with tattoos. I mean, the big tattoos,
Nope.
not my cup of tea either. But
No.
he's getting set up, and this is where our sheriff, who was humiliated, is set them up. And they do a movie. I think it was Kevin Costner plays. They did a movie where they take down Hammaker. They take down
Frank Hammer.
They take down Bonnie and Clyde, and the whole story is his story and how he got there and tracking Bonnie and Clyde. So we could probably do that movie down the road, but. And here he's getting out. He's going to help.
Yeah, because he recognizes him, the guy that brought him, that gave him help. And then I think the father there got underneath the truck a little bit too.
Yes, the highwayman. That's it. Thank you, Martine. That's it. And he's, of course, he sees the car coming. He knows the shooting's gonna. They got to open up before this car. These black guys are driving this car. Crosses the path, so he knows it's coming. I think this is really good. I like this. They did a good job on this scene. So the birds flush, right? And they all realize it's a setup just before.
This ain't right. And didn't the car with the guys in it, the black guys in it, didn't they stop and back up?
Well, I think the shooting started. They slowed down,
yeah,
and then shooting started, and then they started backing up. Yeah, and he dives under the truck. Recover,
and he sits there and gets shot. Yeah, the guys in the car, they had some pretty good situational awareness.
Something's wrong here.
This don't look right. Yeah.
I never got to, why do they have one black and I never understand that, sunglasses, or maybe
when they got back in the car after they left the sandwich shop, his sunglasses, because he stole those sunglasses from the sheriff. and they fell on the ground, and the lens popped out. And he
I
goes,
didn't
"Oh,
see
I'll
that.
wear them anyway, just to be cool."
Well, here is the History Channel made a 2-part miniseries about Bonnie and Clyde in 2013. I like that one a lot. Yeah, we'll have to ask you. You know, you can pop up, Martine. Tell us what do you think of it. Let's see. In France, you'd have Jacques Mearshine and his girlfriend. It ended the same way. Really? Is that a true story, Tom? And here they are. They're getting blasted. And these guys came for bear. They weren't taking any chances. They were concealed. They had the armament they needs. They did have guns in the car, Bonnie and Clyde. They did not get him a chance. He was public enemy number 1. Really?
Okay.
Wow. Let me write that one down there, Tom. Let's see. Who is this? That's an interesting. I like interesting stories like that. Let's see. Jacques Mearshine. Okay. And you know, I didn't see pictures online of these of the bodies, the real pictures, but I had seen them previously, and this was pretty accurate. Their bodies got riddled with bullets. There's the guys that have the situational awareness. Let me slow down here. There's something going on, and then you just see Hammer
Frank
coming
Hammer
out of the
coming
bush,
out. Yeah.
coming out of the bushes, and the dad knows it's over. There he is.
Yeah, the ambush scene kind of reminded me of the ambush scene in The Godfather, where Sonny Corleone
Yeah.
got taken out at the toll road. It's just a gazillion rounds. There's no question to what's going to happen with that. And these guys here, they were all armed the same. It sounded like just opened up.
All right, so this is our ode to. Oh my God, I'm losing my mind here. What's our actor's name? That
Warren
passed
Beatty.
away.
Oh, Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman. Our ode to Gene Hackman. He was nominated for Academy Award. Hey, yeah, good movie though, right? Did you enjoy watching it?
Yeah, I liked it. The only part my wife didn't like about it was the audio, and I had to remind her this is it's not to 2024 standards. This was 1967, so they didn't have as good as audio, and Technicolor wasn't as good as it is now, and all this other stuff. But you know, when you remember that it's 1967 standards on the technical part, then it just makes everything fit in better. And I enjoyed the movie. So probably seen it like 5 times now, 6 times.
See, Cam, there's always there's always that moment when you spring an ambush and you have it sprung on you. It's like the second of a sixth sense. Hard to explain and harder to forget. Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job of it. Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. Hey Gambit, thank you for joining us. We're just finishing up here. We're just honoring Gene Hackman by doing one of his movies. Martine, jump up here. I want to know what you thought of the movie.
Yeah, I think they over romanticize the whole thing.
Oh yeah, but that's what makes the movie.
Yeah, but I mean, you see the version of History Channel, and you see the Highwaymen, and it's more they weren't portrayed as heroes, and this movie kind of does that. They killed problems with it.
Yeah, 12 people. Yeah, they killed 12 people. Yeah, so I wanted to make sure we brought that out.
Yeah.
So, but hey, for a Gene Hackman, are you guys doing another Gene Hackman movie? Have you guys already done one during the week?
Yes, we have done 2 of them, and tomorrow we're gonna do another one. We're gonna do the bird cage.
Okay.
Which, again, he was a support character, playing a ultra conservative senator.
Yeah.
With
Robin Williams.
Yeah.
So that's tomorrow at what time? So the folks can tune in.
3 p.m. Central.
3 p.m. Central. All right, guys, we are at the end of our show. Thank you for joining me on Morning Coffee with the Chief. We did Bonnie and Clyde in honor of Gene Hackman. The late Gene Hackman died recently. Hopefully, we'll get a little more details on his death. Danny Coon, thank you for joining us on the show today.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for having me. And let's look and see if there's any The other guy that passed away.
Oh, Joseph Wamba.
Joe, if there's
Wamba.
any Wamba bad movies that you haven't done.
Yeah, I have to look. He's got some that are made for TV kind of ones that are like the Black Marble.
Yeah.
I watched it. I go, well, I'll have to look at it. I'll look for one and bring it back, and so we get a chance to talk about Joe.
Yeah, and if we can do another Hackman, we'll find a Hackman movie. But if we can do another one, because I like his style of acting. He don't take no crap style of acting, and that's the cool part about it. He just does it like it is, and that's it. So.
All right, Martine, we are at the end of the show. I think we can say goodbye to our audience and have them tune in at 3 p.m. Central Time for the Birdcage.
Well, see you, everybody.
Adios.
Have a